In 1937, a young college woman, Ruth Baumgardner, says goodnight to her friends and heads to her dorm room. That's the last anyone sees of her. The next day, her room is empty, her bed is made, and her car key is found on the dorm building staircase. This is her story.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Amy.
And you're listening to She Goes by Jane. At the end of this episode and every episode, we will be joined by a special guest who will read an original poem by Amy Baker about the women we're featuring. This week, we are joined by Mallory Kennedy.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Amy.
Vanessa, to recap, outside of what we do here, you make documentary films, but you are also a professional photographer.
Yes.
And I know that you handle a lot of the editing in your business.
Yes, I handle all of the photography editing.
So what's your take on, what's your personal approach to editing people's faces?
Okay, I go for well-rested and blemish-free.
Okay.
That is all.
Okay.
So I will not take off your moles or your freckles. I will not change anything else. If you have serious eye bags, I might tone them down a bit, but I won't get rid of them.
Well, next time you do my face, just...
You want them gone completely?
Completely.
I don't.
For me.
I can
do
for
it
you.
For me.
I will with special requests. I'll also take off moles or things with special requests. I won't normally take off scars. I think those are part of a person.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that's supposed to be there, I won't take off. But obviously, if your eye bags are terrible, they're not always like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a zit, you don't
You'll
normally have that. We will get rid of that. But no, well rested and blemish free are the only two that I do, unless there's a request.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting now because with people using their phones and taking lots of selfies, there's a lot of heavy duty photo editing. And I think sometimes it's so hard because it's I'm of an age where wrinkles are wrinkling.
I know.
And
not that I think you're wrinkled, but I'm above your age of wrinkles wrinkling, so
yeah.
I know what you're meaning, but I also know that we need to resist the urge to unwrinkle.
It's a little bit weird sometimes to see people that I know also must have wrinkles because they're my age or older, but they're not there, or their face has they've used so much editing that it's they've started to look weirdly plasticky.
Yeah, so sometimes if you notice they'll do the quick phone edit.
Yeah.
You'll notice that their hair is weird too.
Oh.
So if you notice that they're super smooth, but their hair is also not got that coarse looking texture that hair is supposed to have.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some major just all over filtering.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think most people are taking the time to actually go in and do the proper so when I remove a blemish, I'm only removing the blemish.
Right. Because you're actually usually using professional tools.
Nothing else is getting softened. Nothing else is getting blurred. But when people just do the phone thing, they're blurring everything. So you'll see sometimes they'll have a picture with their kids, and now their kid is strangely smooth as well.
They start to look everyone starts to look a little not quite human. It's an interesting thing. But what I don't think people realize with all of this photo editing that we have today is that photo editing has existed about as long as photo taking has. Right.
Yes. I've done darkroom editing too. Yeah, you can actually brighten and darken certain places, just in the darkroom. So that kind of thing's been done forever.
Yeah, and I don't think because it's just now it feels like it's part of the phone or a part of say Photoshop or something like that. I don't think people realize old photos were subject to photo editing as well. So we're going to end up sharing 2 images on our socials when we have this episode, and it's about Ruth Baumgardner. And her mother was actually worried that one of those edited photos that was used in the newspaper was actually hindering the search for her daughter because they were putting out this edited photo of her.
So it didn't even look like her to her mom.
To her mom, yeah. And it's actually really interesting because even now I see that image of her, and I scour, of course, like forums and places where people are talking about this case still. And people are like, are we sure that's actually her? Like, but they haven't read the article in which her mom talks about, oh, that's an edited photo. And I just feel like it doesn't look quite like Ruth, right?
So do you have like an unedited one and then an edited one?
So
So
we'll
we can
both.
share both? Okay.
So you can kind of, you'll be able to see the difference and why that matters. And it's also interesting because today I think a lot of people on socials are sharing so much like edited photos that those are the photos that exist of them. And so I've seen some missing persons photos where it's heavily edited. And I'm like, oh, but like, what do they look like?
Right. So it's also changing like our perception of what it should be like to age.
Right.
So it's like having, like some of us are like losing touch with that. Some people I've seen are going the next step. I've seen like even local business people using the AI photos as their actual like business
like
headshot.
Professional.
So I really have feelings about that. I also have feelings about people just even, I know your husband is guilty of this, right? Using photos that are like outdated.
Oh my God, yes. He like does not.
Yeah, I still think that's like a false representation of who you are.
Yeah.
It should be current within like the last 5 years, or if you've had any major like facial or hair changes, it should be updated.
His is like, he doesn't really have.
He hasn't. He hasn't really changed
shots
though either.
Oh God, I hate him for that.
He hasn't. He hasn't. To be fair, like
he hasn't. No, but his social profiles, like I think it's like he doesn't care enough about social media to like update it ever.
Yeah.
Like he goes on there to like share posts about me, which is very sweet. But like
that is very sweet.
But otherwise, he's just like not present in that world. So yeah, he hasn't updated his, but also he doesn't really feel like he wants to, but
right. But like for somebody who's got their face out there, especially like business, like
yes,
when you're talking about like people that you would see like salespeople or realtors or stuff like that, you can't see a photo and then show up to the meeting and be questioning if that's the right person.
Right. Like when he sells his book and his face is out there, he will point out.
But like I said, he essentially, to be fair, does still look almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
I know.
It's
annoying.
It is annoying. Okay. Now, before we get into Ruth's story for today, I want to thank our listeners who reached out and asked to hear it. So, as a reminder, we mentioned her in our episode about Lola Celli, who went missing a few years after Ruth. And Lola and Ruth are both from Ohio. Now, they're close in age, and in the fashion of that era, both of them had the amnesia theory mentioned, which I'll bring up again here because it's actually fascinating. So there's lots of similarities between their cases. And so I mentioned Ruth during Lola's episode because people had been comparing them at the time. And then people reached out and said, absolutely, we want to hear Ruth's story. So we're going to dive in.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sure.
So for Ruth Baumgardner's story, we're going to Delaware, Ohio. I kept on getting confusing every time I saw Delaware. And then I was like, oh no, Delaware, Ohio. Yes. Now, what?
Well, now I'm confused on the other Delaware.
Like Delaware, the state.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, it's a city.
It's a city.
Yeah.
I'm Canadian.
Oh, yeah. So no, it's Delaware, a city in Ohio and home of Ohio Wesleyan University.
Okay.
Now, it's May 1937, and Ruth Baumgardner is a 22-year-old senior in college and just about 1 month left before she graduates with her degree in art.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Vanessa, as you know, my goal is to emphasize who individuals were outside of their disappearances, and I'm afraid I don't have much here about Ruth's early life.
Okay, so we won't be hearing
Not
a ton?
Not a ton, no.
Okay.
So what we do know is that the Baumgardner family consists of her dad, Carl, her mom, Emma, and her older sister, Aura. Aura is about 5 years older than Ruth, and she's already married by the time Ruth is in college. And her dad, Carl, works as a secretary treasurer and general manager of Baumgardner Manufacturing Company that makes and distributes funeral supplies. So, based on the name, I'm going to assume this is a family
business. Funeral supplies.
Funeral supplies, yes. And Really, Ruth seems to be living a pretty quiet life before college. Her family lives in Lakewood, Ohio, which is about 120 miles northeast of Delaware. So Ruth lived on campus during her college years and returned home for vacations and holidays. We also know that she was engaged to a man named Harry Moore. He was also from Lakewood, but they had met when she was at her parents' cottage in Vermilion that August before. So that's August 1936. I don't get a sense that Harry's family was as well off financially as Ruth's family because he was working as a gas station attendant at Standard Oil in Lakewood, trying to put himself through college. The two had come to an understanding. That's the phrase that was used in the papers during Ruth's visit home for Easter break, and he was in the process of getting his grandmother's ring reset into a setting that Ruth preferred.
So the engagement is the understanding?
Yes.
Aw.
Yeah. Come to an understanding.
So romantic.
Yeah. He said later that the two planned to marry within the next year.
Okay.
So that Easter break was a big one for Ruth. So not only did she come to this understanding with Harry, but her father also gifted her a bright red Dodge Coupe as an early graduation gift. So
that is a big lot of life things.
Yes, all at once. So it's like engagement, new car, she's going to be graduating. She's got a lot going on. Now, in the weeks leading up to Ruth's disappearance, she was incredibly busy outside of these things. So she belonged to the Delta.
3 deltas.
3 deltas sorority on campus, otherwise known as the Tri-Delts.
Okay, I was going to ask if it's like triple delta, but Tri-Delts.
Tri-Delts.
Perfect.
Yeah. And so she had her regular sorority obligations. But in May of the previous year, she was serving as the recording secretary. So I'm assuming she was still in this like leadership position or something similar in 1937. So she was all about her sorority, I think. In addition to that, she had been in charge of decorating her dorm building, Austin Hall, and serving as chairman for the decorating committee for an open house that was being held on campus. She received a lot of praise for this work she had been doing, but she had written to both her mother and to Harry that she was tired. It was assumed that like working on the open house combined with trying to complete her last months of coursework had just really left her exhausted. Otherwise, though, Ruth did really well in her studies. Overall, she carried about a B average, but she specifically excelled in decorating and design. So some of her pieces, which included designs that could be used for chintz hangings or slip covers, so pattern work, basically.
Okay.
As well as a portrait piece of a young black boy were on display in Lyon Hall, which was the campus home of the Fine Arts Division. Ruth had mentioned that she was looking forward to going to Cleveland School of Art the next fall after she graduated. Some people have said like, oh, she was just going to college as like kind of like a vanity thing, like just for something to do. But like she had specifically mentioned she wanted to go on in her studies of art.
Okay. Do they think that's still vanity?
Well,
like the continuing even? Like
I think people thought that
because of the times, maybe?
Yeah, like the contemporary interpretation of her going to college is it's just like she's just getting a degree before she gets married. But it does not sound like that. It sounds like she had intentions to keep pursuing her art post-marriage.
Do you think it could also have to do with people at that time? I mean, we're talking 1930s here. Thinking that if you're doing something like art, you do not need a degree?
Well, I think it's actually... So this is like contemporary people, so people of our era, our modern era, interpreting it. And
so it wasn't like her peers at the time being like, oh, this is a vanity thing.
No, it's like...
people looking back
are assuming that a woman of this era was just sort of heading towards marriage and that being kind of it. But no, she was interested in pursuing her art.
Yeah, what if that's what she...
Yeah.
What if she was going to... Obviously, the story is not a continuation of her life, right? Like,
right, yeah.
So how do we know that like she wasn't putting career ahead of marriage? Like, we don't know.
Yes. So, like, I checked it out, and it's like, like, the university that Harry was going to was in Cleveland, or that he was trying to finance by working. And so, yeah, I think, like, even if she had married him, I think her intent was to continue to pursue art. This wasn't
Okay.
just like a, privileged woman just bored and wanted to go to college.
Yeah, I
right?
thought like if her peers at the time were being like, she's only going for art.
No,
Like,
no,
she can just like.
It is the people of today.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So what we also know, and what might not be and have been fully apparent to those who knew her at the time, is that Ruth was skipping chapel, which was a requirement of the university. I get the sense that it's like a little religious service, a little campus lecture.
Okay, so it must have been like a religious college then for her to.
So it does have like religious connections, or
Yeah.
did at the time, but like, yeah. So mostly chapel is like kind of like where the university president also speaks, and yeah, and that was required at the time that you went. Now, news articles later vary on how many she missed in a row, but essentially every time a student missed this chapel session or class, they would get what was called a cut. And you get too many cuts, and you'd have to add 1 hour of coursework. So not like a physical hour, but like a credit, essentially.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because it was like when you were saying an hour and I was thinking like an actual hour. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. So like, no, but like a credit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for Ruth, that would mean she wouldn't graduate on time. And she was
Okay.
getting close, although not dangerously close, depending on how many people said that she had missed in a row, like at that point. So she was skipping for some reason.
Okay.
And so that brings us to the days before her disappearance, which, Vanessa, I'm just forewarning you that that's happening, because I know that once I start mentioning dates, it means that like the worst is about to happen.
So there's really not much there.
There is not much.
When you told me it was going to be brief, it was.
it's
We're
very
already
to her disappearance.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's just, she's a college student. She's pursuing her art. She's gotten engaged, right?
Have you seen any of her art?
I have not, no. So, when we talked about Bessie Hyde, who went missing, 10 years before
Yeah.
Ruth, I got to see some of her art, but I've not been able to see any of Ruth's. I did see a picture of her dorm room, but that's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would have loved to have seen some of her art pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly because they were hung up in the art building, and her art instructors did talk a lot about how she had a lot of talent.
Okay. So on with the dates.
On with the dates, yeah. So as far as we know, she goes missing on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay, but on Monday of that week, which is May 3rd, she cashes a $5 check from home at a place called Buns. At some point that evening, some calls come from a man into her dorm building. Now, for clarity, like many colleges at the time, Ruth lived in an all-female dorm building, then called Austin Hall. It was later renamed Austin Manor and was built specifically for the influx of female students after World War I. Okay, so that's where we are. The university sold the building in 2018. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
So what is it now?
I don't know what it is now, but it is still in existence. But they sold it so they could buy other buildings. I went on a journey with that. Yeah. Did I
would
need to
not
know any of
expect
it?
anything
I
less
did
from
not,
you.
No. Okay. So, like many of the dorm buildings, this has rules. Okay. So, for one, there's a curfew. So, every woman who lived there had to be in by 10:30 p.m. And for two, well, this isn't exactly a rule, but there's no phones in their individual rooms. So you would have to call into a central phone in the building, wait for someone to pick up, and then hope they can find the person that you're calling in for. So it's not clear if Ruth spoke to this man who called for her at any point that night on Monday night, but most have said that the two did not connect.
We don't know who the man is. It's not Harry.
Not Harry. It's not Harry.
Okay.
So the next day is Tuesday the 4th, and everything is going kind of typically for Ruth. She attended her classes and met with friends. That evening, Louise Pritchard, the Tri-Delt president, said that she had dinner with Ruth on campus, and they were together from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. After that, Ruth seemed to go to her dorm building's smoking room, because that's also something that they had. And she was there with some of her sorority sisters. She was studying for an exam that she had the next day on the novel The Patrician by John Galsworthy. Now, a friend would later say that Ruth expressed that she was nervous about passing all 15 hours or credits of her coursework. Another would say that Ruth seemed upset about the exam because she didn't believe that she understood the book. Others, though, said that she seemed to be in a good mood.
So anything.
Yeah, so...
She was feeling anything about anything.
Yeah, well, what is interesting, what has been said about her is that all of those descriptions actually might have been accurate.
So different people might have gotten...
Yeah.
Because, like, well, I mean... Really,
right.
Depending on how much you know somebody, how well you know them, you're not going to just like complain to somebody you're
right. So
that you don't really know.
Perceptions.
Yeah,
but also Ruth was described as moody.
Okay.
Right. One said that her mood was, or did reflect the personality of whomever she was with.
Okay. She mirrors.
Yes.
Yes.
And a man that she had dated said that over the course of the evening, she would go from vivacious to depressed, and that sometimes collegiate banter would leave her cold, or if she was in the mood, it would elicit laughter.
Wait, the man she dated? Harry?
No, so not Harry. Yeah. So actually what is interesting, and what I forgot to mention, is that according to friends, she had continued dating.
Okay.
Until Easter, when Harry asked her to marry him.
When the agreement was made.
Yes, they came to the understanding.
So that was the understanding.
Yeah. Like,
you're not going to date
around.
You're not going to date anymore because we're together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that she had continued dating on campus.
Okay.
Because Harry's not on campus.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, during her time in the smoking room studying, some more calls came for her. The person was described as having a high-pitched male voice, and that the call came from an off-campus, but local number.
Did you ever find out who that was?
Like, we still do not know who these calls came from. So this is one of the many mysteries in her disappearance. But it looks like they don't connect this time either, Ruth and this man, because she's down in the smoking room. And no one ever comes forward and says they were calling her.
Okay. I think it's so funny because this, like, people always like to say, like, this generation's going to crap. But, like, we don't have smoking rooms in campus anymore.
Well, it's because everyone smoked back then.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, maybe in some places the young people are getting better.
Their lungs are getting better.
Getting better.
Okay, now, according to Helen Specht, who's Ruth's friend, they last see her that evening. She says she was with us girls all evening until after 11:15. She was in good spirits. We kidded and laughed and studied as usual. She's last seen in this dorm building at around this 11:15 mark in her robe and pajamas. Some say that she had a towel as though she was coming back from the shower around then, but basically everyone agrees that she went into her dorm room for the night. Now, Ruth's room, which is room 319, is a single, meaning she didn't have a roommate, so no one expects to see her for the rest of the night after she heads to bed.
Okay.
The next morning, Wednesday, her friend Roberta Smith arrives at Ruth's door and knocks. She is hoping that the two are going to go to breakfast together, and that maybe after Ruth could drive her in her new car to class.
Okay, so I'm seeing why you said she disappeared Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, so like...
Okay, during the night.
During the night at some point, right? But Roberta's knocking, but Ruth doesn't come to the door. And at this point, Roberta thinks that, she somehow missed Ruth and that Ruth had gotten up early and headed to breakfast without her. So Roberta heads off to the dining hall, hoping to catch up with her there. But, Ruth isn't there either.
Okay.
So Roberta is now a bit worried that Ruth has overslept and, Ruth has a test. So she heads back to the dorm to wake her up. It's there that she finds Ruth's key case between the second and third floors on the steps.
She knows it's Ruth's?
Yes. So this leather case holds her identification tag, keys to her room, and one set of her car keys. And apparently it looks as though they have been set there towards the back of the step rather than if they just fallen or slipped out of something.
It's weird.
Mm-hmm. So finally, it's time to raise the alarm that something's going on with Ruth, but of course, to no one official. Roberta goes to their Tri-Delt president, Louise.
Okay.
So Louise quickly calls a meeting of some of the sorority sisters, and they decide it's possible that Ruth could have gone to Columbus shopping using her extra, spare set of car keys, right? Also, later Harry would say, her college chums thought she had eloped with me, indicating that at least some of them thought it was a possibility that she had, eloped.
Okay, so we are not talking to anybody official.
No. The adults do not know.
Okay. Go get an adult.
Yeah. So they decide to wait to see what happens, but they affirm that if she is not back by 10:30 p.m., which is curfew, they will then have to report it.
Okay.
So likely it's a tense day for the sorority sisters. Ruth never arrives at the exam she spent the evening studying for, and she doesn't come to dinner like she normally would. And her car, that bright red coupe, was still inside the garage space she rented to store it in.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. So that evening at 10:30 p.m., they alert a woman named Goldie McHugh, who is the assistant dean of women in charge of Austin Hall. And finding her room empty, Goldie quickly alerts the campus authorities and the local police are called. And it takes until the next day for Ruth's parents to be able to make it to campus to see what's what.
So a full day has passed.
Yes.
Before Ruth's parents know.
Yeah, so she goes missing. She's last seen at 11:15-ish p.m. on Tuesday night, and the authorities are not called or alerted until 10:30 p.m. the following day. And then it takes until the next day. Yeah, for her parents to get there.
Okay.
Now, when Ruth's parents arrive, they help in assessing her room. The pajamas and the robe she had been wearing the night before were in the room, but her bed was neatly made. Yeah. Her purse was still there. And on the dresser was about 30 cents in change, plus her sorority pin.
Okay.
Now, everyone makes a big deal about the sorority pin, so I'm assuming it was custom for her to wear her sorority pin. So, also, her alarm clock is set to 6 a.m., but it's run down, which has led some people to believe that she was there as of 6 a.m., and others to believe that the alarm went off and she wasn't there to turn it off.
Okay. So we think if she's out of her pajamas with her bed made, it is likely she woke up at 6, right?
Well, so there's the question,
or before that?
Did she not even go to bed that night?
Right.
Did she leave before, take off her pajamas and then leave? Or did she leave early in the morning before other people got up?
Right.
Yeah. So there's that big,
what happened?
What happened, right? Now, Ruth's mother is searching through her belongings, and she discovers that missing are a black overnight case that she had recently purchased, and Ruth's oldest suit, which consisted of a brown coat, brown skirt, a brown hat, and brown sports shoes. Everything's brown.
It's I bet it's much cuter than it sounds.
I am certain
yes.
that it must be, right? Now, later her sorority sisters will actually search the room themselves, and they report that her hair curlers and her hairpins were also missing, but another later report will say that those were actually found. So, I don't know. But the most noteworthy is that, other than those items, was the condition of the room itself. One of her friends said that she had left her room in apple pie order, which is a 1930s-ism, if I've ever heard of one. Almost as good as they had come to an understanding. Now, normally she was described as being a trifle careless with her belongings.
So getting off track, I think we need to reincorporate some of these things into modern speech.
Come to an understanding, apple pie order.
And a trifle careless.
Trifle careless.
Just a trifle.
Yeah. So from what I take away from this is normally Ruth's room is a bit messy. And
it's not usually in apple pie order.
It is not usually in apple pie order. No.
That's just the cutest
order. Apple pie order? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a moment. So what happens initially in the search seems to be a bit of a slow start, to be honest, besides this, 24-hour gap, really. And I'm not exactly certain how seriously the student body takes this initially. Like, first, her sorority sisters spend their time going to local florists around Delaware, making sure that Ruth had not placed an order for flowers.
Okay.
And that's because Mother's Day was on the coming Sunday, and they didn't want her mother to be upset receiving flowers.
That's weird.
Isn't it?
So they're not taking it seriously. So right away when you said that, I'm like, okay, so they think she's actually gone off to get married or gone off to do something, but then trying to not let her mom get flowers.
Like, that's how you spend.
That means that they also don't think she's going to come back.
Right.
Like, so it's going to be hurtful for her mom to receive these flowers.
Uh-huh.
Like, which one is it? Are we concerned or are we not? Like,
yeah, it's, and why is that your move, right? Like, why is your move not to, like,
I don't think I'd even think of that.
Legit would not.
Until, like, actually Mother's Day, and then I'd be like, oh, shoot, her mom's going to be feeling this.
Like, yeah. Second, though, the sorority sisters drop out of a singing competition they'd been training for with Ruth. It's against other sororities, but the event is still held.
Okay.
So, like, even though there's, like, a missing woman on campus, all the sororities are like, yes, let's have our singing competition.
And only her house drops out.
Yeah. Like, what? Like, I guess, like, to me, it's like, shouldn't the whole campus be like,
so you'd think, but,
yeah,
you know.
But apparently not. Now, there also is a Mother's Day luncheon that's being held by the sororities, and her sorority again backs out, but the others go forward and they, like, crown someone. It's just, like, a really bizarre situation. The campus president does make a plea for students to come forward if they know anything and help in the search during one of those chapel sessions, but it's not until almost a week later that it's reported that the president of the student body makes an appeal. So weird to me.
We're moving slowly.
Yeah. Now, the local community, though, does respond, and there's initially 3 solid leads. First, there's a night watchman for the state highway garage, and he says that he saw Ruth in her Dodge coupe at the nearby quarry. Now, the quarry is just a quarter mile from Ruth's dorm. Like, if you look at it on Google Maps today, it is legit, like, right behind the dorm.
Okay.
And apparently she would frequently go there to study.
Why would she drive there?
I don't know. Like, why is she driving to class, too? I think she just has the shiny red car and wants to drive it around, to be honest. Now, this man is named Harry Nafis, and he said that he remembered her because of the red car, and it's one of the only 2 in town. And mind you, at this point, the town is only about 8,000 people, so it's certainly possible that there's, at this point, only 2 red cars. Yeah. He said, I saw her drive up toward the quarry as many students do in the evening. I went on and about my rounds and couldn't say when she pulled away. I couldn't say positively, but I believe she was alone. I noticed no one with her.
Okay, so when did he see her?
So he saw her at dusk, which is actually one of the problems with his statement, because at this point, Ruth was supposed to be with Louise that night. So that casts some doubt on his claim.
Right, and this is before the other girls at the dorm saw her.
Yes.
In her pajamas and stuff. So,
yeah. So he
like,
saw
what would
her...
this really have to do with anything in that sense?
Right. So for some reason, like, him seeing her at dusk makes everyone think that she might have come back later. I don't know. There's, like, some interesting logic here.
Okay.
Now, the fact that she could be in the quarry was a possibility, like, in the quarry, because they debate dragging it or dynamiting it, hoping to find her body. But apparently this quarry, this old quarry, had filled up with water.
Okay.
I should have said that. It's 55 feet deep, and there's also known to be cars down in the bottom, meaning that they can't really drag it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's, like, quite a deep, yeah.
Yeah. So they're hoping to dynamite it, mostly to, like, move stuff around.
Unsettle.
Yeah. Yes. Now, this line of inquiry did bring up the suggestion of whether or not she could have died from suicide. Now, people had said that Ruth was nervous as a person, indicating that some believed that she was under strain and that something happened to her. Now, 2 other people came forward to say they might have encountered or heard Ruth after she disappeared. Now, the first woman was Mrs. Wilmer Smith, who lived on the Olentangy Road along the Olentangy River. She said that between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. she heard several shrieks or wails that grew in crescendo.
So she didn't see anything, but she heard
some screams that night. There's another person named Kenneth Cole who worked as a restaurant clerk near the river. He said that he saw someone resembling her walking along an abandoned Pennsylvania railroad right-of-way on Wednesday morning. So that would have been post-shrieks.
Mm-hmm.
These two reports did prompt a search of this area, and investigators did find a torn piece of brown cloth on the west bank that looked like it could have been from a coat lining. And it even had a blob of paint on it. And since Ruth had been working on decorating and she was also a fine arts student, like it looked like it could be a lead. But when they showed it to her mother, she said that wasn't the right shade of brown to belong to Ruth's coat.
I feel like she'd know that. Like, you'd know your children's clothes, you know? Like, you said it's her oldest brown suit, too. So she's probably seen her in it, like, dozens of times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, two of the other lines of inquiry centered on whether or not she could have been kidnapped or, had some sort of accident. Harry, the fiancé, said, I did think of kidnapping. The new red coupe her father gave her as a graduation present might have some people to believe she was rich. Her sister's comment on this is so much less charitable. It's like such a bit of a jealous sister thing to say. She says, someone may have gotten the impression she was wealthy from the gaudy new car she was driving around.
She said that after her sister disappeared?
Yeah.
That's not nice.
Yeah. Now, still, like, Ruth's car was in the garage, and she did have very little available money at the time, so she wasn't carrying money on her. Also, it doesn't seem as though the family ever received a ransom request, like something that was happening in this era, so...
Right. What's the point of stealing a girl that might have money if you're not going to try to get the money?
Right. Now, Sunday, Mother's Day, and it's less than 1 week after Ruth went missing, so it's clear that her family thought the police were not investigating as intensely as they could, and they brought in outside resources. They hired Gaston Stickler of the William J. Burns Detective Agency. Now, I sometimes see people saying they hired Pinkertons, but I'm sure the Burns Agency would be annoyed about being erased since these two were actually in competition with one another as private investigating agencies. Her father said of the decision, we feel that the local police have done all they could with their means and are at a standstill and do not know where to turn. The sheriff's office has done a good job, but its jurisdiction is limited. We felt that if we had an investigator of our own who could go anywhere, something would turn up. So within a few days, they start actually asking for the case to be turned over to this private investigator. And what emerges in this time of the investigation is the possibility that Ruth had left voluntarily or that she was beset with amnesia. Right. So Miss McHugh, who again is the assistant dean of women, she said, the girls are baffled completely. Ruth was to have graduated next month and no one had an opinion that there was anything wrong. She was one of the most normal girls on campus. She apparently slipped out of the hall voluntarily. It was either because she had an attack of amnesia or because she wanted to leave here. We haven't been able to find out what would motivate either action. It's a mystery.
It is a mystery. So, yeah, one of the most normal girls on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And it does look like she did slip out voluntarily.
Right.
But did she?
Well, did she? So there's also this like amnesia question, and it's okay. So,
but this is not a thing that we talk about much now in relating to cases like this.
It was so popular, in
right?
The
but like, how
1940s.
often did that kind of thing actually happen?
It did not, but it was such a popular theory at the time, and really, it's like the dean even says like, oh, she'd written to her parents that she had so many things to do and didn't know how she was going to get them done. And she was so extremely tired. And so this is like, she must have amnesia.
So is that like women are so like frail that we get a little bit overwhelmed and suddenly that's it? Amnesia?
Yes. Our brains just...
Yeah, I just don't know. Like...
Yeah. And her father even says, oh, amnesia is the only thing that makes sense.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So this amnesia thing is a common theme at the time. So it was mentioned in the Lola case.
Yeah.
That we talked about. We also have an episode that we're working on about this woman named Mimi Boomhauer. Like, it's mentioned in her case as well. Like,
but I just don't understand because, like, it does happen, yes. But how often does it actually happen? Not often.
no, but it's like particularly of this era with young women, although Mimi was older, but like it's in the conversation, and like it's also in movies. There's amnesia. I feel like I'm just gonna have to do a deep dive on amnesia. At
Right.
some point,
Like, I do want to know, like, numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird. Okay. But in terms of leaving voluntarily, I should say that Ruth's story gets picked up nationwide, but particularly in those early days in the Northeast. And so that leads are pouring in, right? There's even a man near us where Vanessa and I are located who said he saw her in Watertown, New York, and she was asking directions for Ogdensburg, New York. Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's also around this time that two women come forward. There are Mrs. Edward Heigl and Mrs. R.A. Eric of Zanesville, Ohio, which is about 80 miles or so from Ruth's college. They said that they saw a woman and a man on the street, and they came within 2 feet of them. They said the couple was hitchhiking, and the young man had on a white sweater with an athletic letter on it, but they couldn't remember what the letter was. The woman's clothing they described in detail, and minus the shoes, they described what Ruth was wearing.
Now, just curiosity, do you know if, like, in the papers at that time, if they did put a description of her clothing?
They did.
Could that influence someone who might see someone in a similar outfit?
Yeah, it's okay. Now, they said that they didn't think anything of this encounter with this woman until they saw Ruth's photo in the paper on May 10th and recognized her.
So they were thinking back to someone they went by, not even noting.
Yeah, so like what, 6 days-ish before?
Yeah, they could describe the clothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did see a photo of Ruth, and they did have access to articles, again, where her clothing was described in detail.
Okay.
Yeah. But for some reason, this sighting is given a lot of weight, and that's because Ruth's mother is told what these women said, and she's positive that they described Ruth to a T, that they have enough details about Ruth that she was certain it was her in Zanesville. I mean, like some of the things, it was like her hair is pulled back, like on the side, on the right side. Like you can get that from the photo.
Right.
Like,
well, just like, so recently there was like a missing man here.
Mm-hmm.
And I went somewhere and I swear I saw him.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, is that the missing guy? That looks just like the missing guy. Convinced myself it was definitely the missing guy. Did a little quick Google search. Do you know how off I was?
You're like, oh, that's not him at all.
That's not him at all. Like, it's in the realm. Like, if they were like a genre, he'd be in the similar genre of man. But he was not, like, memories are not accurate.
Yeah.
And they're easily influenced by new information.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it's like saying like, oh, she has like 2 rows of like kind of like curls in the back. It's like, well, you can tell that from the photo. Like,
yes.
Anyway.
So that might like change their perception of the person they saw. Like, oh yeah, remember?
Yeah. So it's so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, other reports of seeing Ruth are also drifting in at this time. Like, so she's seen in cafes, and she's seen hitchhiking with a man named Frenchie, and she's seen on a bus, and like even like this woman who is kind of starring in this like traveling play, like she was doing Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Oh.
She was taken into custody in Marion, Ohio, under the suspicion that she was Ruth, and she literally had to call her own parents and get them to assert that she was who she said she was.
She was essentially kidnapped.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now, on May 19th, though, it's reported widely that Ruth is finally found. She is in Boston and had registered at the Hotel Brunswick under an assumed name. And when questioned if she was Ruth, she confessed, and she spilled her entire story. She said she was under great strain at college, and she was just forced to leave to escape what was happening there.
What?
Yeah. Like, investigators are quick.
That's not her, though, right?
No.
Okay, because I'm like, I thought we're talking about a missing case here, Amy.
Yeah, so they're really suspicious of her story from the start. I mean, it might be the fact that she said that the pigeons in Boston Common she'd been communicating with them. But
Oh.
yeah. Now, they did call Ruth's sister, though, Aura, and so the two of them could talk on the phone with one another, but the woman in Boston refused to speak to Aura. Aura revealed that Ruth had extensive dental work that would have been easily visible, and an examination of the woman proved that she wasn't Ruth. And it took quite a long time to figure out who she was, and that's kind of its own story. But in short, she had a few mental health conditions that contributed to her lie and her presence in Boston. Now, Aura said at this point, just a few weeks into her sister's disappearance, that she wasn't necessarily surprised by this, and that so many false reports had already come in, and that she just needed absolute proof. She said, "You know how hard it is for Mother when such a definite report came through and the girl insisted she was Ruth. It was hard for Mother not to believe it was she, and she can't help hoping whenever another clue turns up." Now, one of the prevailing stories in the many decades since Ruth's disappearance has been that her parents know where she is, or did, because they have now since passed.
What would lead anyone to think that?
Okay, so we saw this in the Lola Chelly case too. Remember, they're kind of compared to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really like, in that episode, we talked about how police were saying that her parents had like sent her to a convent because they were strict Italian family, right?
So thinking something like that happened.
Yeah.
So is that why we had to, like, why it's notable that she was cutting, like, going to chapel?
So it's like, what was she
Was she,
up
like,
to?
off the wrong track?
Like something. And then the parents found out and institutionalized her or something, right?
Okay.
So
I see what you're meaning. Yeah.
This rumor is very old, and it starts in the 1930s, but is still something that is circulating today about this specific case.
Okay.
So I'm going to get into a little bit of why that's happening. So first, at the time, like, we're in September of 1937, the plain dealer, they do an article interview with her parents, and they say, hey, this rumor is happening that her parents know where she is, and that's not true. And if you spent any time with them, you would know this. Now, during this interview, her mother says that at the time she feels that as long as the newspapers keep alive the story of her daughter, there's still hope, which is kind of like what we hope this podcast does. Like, it keeps their stories alive, right?
Why would she say that, though, if she knows where her daughter is?
Exactly, which is why the interviewer was like, come now, right?
Yeah.
With these rumors. Okay. But she also frets in that interview. That's where she has that conversation about, like, she's worried that the wrong photo of Ruth is being used and that it's her senior portrait. It's been dramatically retouched, and she's worried that people won't recognize the real Ruth.
Okay. So that does not sound like she sent her away. That's like...
Yeah. That's a mom.
That's a little... She's actually got legitimate worries here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, like, something actually pretty big happens between the two dates. So the September interview here and kind of later. So 1939 is when her family kind of says, like, we would like this investigation closed, right? So this big thing is that between these two dates, September 1937, there's the murder of an Ohio highway patrolman named George Kahn. Now, George Kahn was shot 7 times in what was likely initially a traffic stop. A bit later, 4 men are arrested for this crime. There are 3 men in their 20s named Bernard Musula, Peter Sereno, and Charles Ford, and 1 man in his 40s who's Booker Johnson. Now, this gets, like, really convoluted, but basically what happens is these men are arrested for George Kahn's murder. And one of them, Charles Ford, basically says, hey, when George Kahn was killed, these 4 men had a woman tied up in the back seat. He says that it was Ruth. And he says that one of the men had set up a meeting with her, and that when she met with him, she arrived at the car and found these 4 men in the car, and that basically they then kidnapped her. I mean, Charles Ford says that he didn't kidnap her, but it was other people who did. And that she was then held in a house in Steubenville, Ohio for 2 weeks, and after that she was moved to Pittsburgh.
So is he, like, basically saying she's trafficked?
Yeah, so, like, the newspapers are alight with this. Like, they're saying the subtext here is that she's been sex trafficked, right? Though they don't use that term. There's also kind of another subtext that she's been drugged. So,
Okay.
like, she's being drugged. She's been trafficked, right?
But this kind of, I don't know if this is what happened to her, and I don't know if you think this is what happened to her, but like that idea of like that she got up and got dressed and was like going somewhere for a meeting does seem to be likely, does it not?
Well, I mean, it seems like a possibility, but also, like, where would she have met these men? So these men are like, have been in jail before.
But it would also give them reason to like shoot the cop because they don't want him to see what they
had
have
in the car.
Like, so I could see people running with this one.
Yes. So this is...
But like, how, again, would she have met these people? How would she get mixed up in...
Yeah. So these men are like they're traveling throughout the Northeast. So it's like, how do they meet? They definitely do not travel in the same like social circles, right?
Okay.
So you have like this thing that's happening. So like, where did they meet?
Right. And how would they have,
yeah,
convinced her to meet them?
Right. So again, I'd like to pause here to say this same rumor happened with the Dorothy Arnold case, which was like 20 years before.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of talk about whether or not she'd been trafficked, right?
Right.
Which I'm not saying that didn't happen, obviously.
Right, we
People
don't
were
know.
trafficked,
But like, is this guy a reliable source?
Yeah. I mean, I will also say this kind of mirrors what is happening contemporarily when we have talk about sex trafficking is like, we should, yes, be concerned about sex trafficking, but the people that you're worried about are not like the likely targets of sex trafficking.
Right.
Right. So
there
like,
are kids we should be worried about, or women we should be worried about, but those aren't the ones getting
trafficked.
No, getting focused on. Like the ones that are likely to be trafficked
are not the ones.
And that's why they're getting trafficked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you have Dorothy Arnold, who comes from like a wealthy family in New York City and is like this great fear that she's been trafficked. Or you have, Ruth, who comes from this like well-off family and is a young college student who's just about to graduate, and you're worried about her being trafficked, right?
Right.
Now, like what does happen in this news kind of fades because like the newspapers are originally alight with like, Ruth's been located, we just have to find her.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's not the same.
No. Now, they don't find her, and it's resurrected in the trial where Ford, he stands by what he says, and after the trial ends, the police do visit Missoula, who is said to have been the man who set up the meeting with Ruth, and that doesn't go anywhere either, right? Now, much later, a detective self-publishes a book where he claims to have been visited by Pinkertons, who let him know to drop the search for Ruth.
Okay.
That she was found after a raid on a house of ill repute, and that her parents had then institutionalized her after that.
Okay.
So this is like so shaky because you already have this rumor.
Yeah, because that kind of goes hand in hand with what Ford is saying, right?
Right. Yeah. Now, like you have this, it's like this rumor at the time indicating that the family had hidden their daughter away. So that was already circulating. Right?
Right.
So that rumor that her family knew where she was, that began well before the Ford stuff comes out.
They combine them.
Yeah. And then we also know that, like, what follows up is a jailhouse confession by a man who's likely facing some pretty scary outcomes in the death of a highway patrolman, particularly because Ford is a black man in the 1930s facing murder charges for a cop, right?
Mm.
And then this is backed up by someone who kept this secret for years, this investigator, who then says the Pinkertons came to him, and we know that the family was actually using a competing investigative firm. Like, they were not using the Pinkertons, right? So, I don't know. I have a bunch of questions about that whole thing. But I do think, it is well within the realm of possibility that Ruth was planning on meeting someone.
Right. And if somebody, I don't know how things would have happened then, but like as an art student, she might have been meeting to like show her art or do something like that, I don't know.
Like anything
There's
could be...
tons of possibilities on what could have
happened.
What could have lured her into a meeting.
Right.
But
And then, like, whether or not that meeting was to, like, run away or leave college with that person, or whether that meeting ended in something tragic, like, I don't know. But I think that is certainly reasonable. But, like, this, like, she met up with these sex traffickers who took her to Philly and drugged her, and then her family institutionalized her after. Like, that's a lot of steps.
Right.
In that story.
Right. The family institutionalizing her after, like, would that be a typical outcome then?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that this didn't happen in the 1930s and 40s, particularly,
No, but, like, if you found say your child has been kidnapped into sex trafficking, you found them, would you, like, torture them further by institutionalizing them? Or would you...
So then, then it's like, well, did they institutionalize her because they were ashamed that she had been trafficked and this was a way to hide it? Or did they hide her because she was addicted to drugs after being sex trafficked? I mean, it's just... It's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm not saying that couldn't be a possibility, but, like, realistically, that's a pretty low possibility. And particularly because this rumor of her parents, like, knowing what happened to her and hiding it comes months before this comes out, right? Like,
they already said she hid them. Then we do the sex trafficking spin. Then we're saying that she was found and then hidden.
Right.
So, like they were going to come to that outcome regardless, just kind of like the amnesia one.
Yes. And because we also saw this in, like, Lola's case a few years later, God, like, this idea that, like, parents ashamed of their daughters and hiding them away is...
It's showing how hard life was for women then, because, like, first off, the belief that we're so fragile that we will just end up in, like, having amnesia for, like, any amount of pressure. Then secondly, thinking that, like, oh, she doesn't need an education, she's going to get married anyway. And then thinking that, like, oh, if she steps out of line, her parents will definitely have her put away.
Right.
Like, how could you even breathe as, like, a 20-year-old woman then?
Right. And, like, also this understanding that her parents would end the investigation, and then the only reason that they would come to that conclusion is because they found out what happened to her and were just like, okay, we're done. We know, but we're not going to tell anyone.
Right.
Now, like, I don't know what happened to Ruth, nor can I guess. The newspaper did visit her on the 20th anniversary of her disappearance and did speak to her mother. And I think this really illuminates, like, kind of what her mom might be thinking and why they decided not to pursue it. And her mom said, "We have never heard another word about Ruth. We have never been able to find anything in our minds that could explain her disappearance. I don't believe she will turn up, but I don't know. It isn't good for one to keep thinking about it. If we could do something, that would be different. But when we find ourselves against a stone wall, it is best to try to forget."
We are now going to listen to Amy's poem, The Path Through the Woods, read by Mallory Kennedy. Originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Mallory is a producer, writer, and the president of Margrette Bird Pictures, an independent film company. She is known for her work on the award-winning Price is Right documentary, The Perfect Bid, The Contestant Who Knew Too Much. She's also the author of Outsledded, Nutritional Exorcism, and the Energetic Athletics book series. Much of Mallory's work focuses on developing your own brand of femininity while finding the path to energetic health and wellness. Visit MalloryKennedy.com to find the latest news, books, and articles, as well as the upcoming release of Mad Mac, The Memory of Jim McMahon, a new documentary film that explores the life and post-NFL health challenges of the legendary Chicago Bears quarterback.
The Path Through the Woods. Ruth Baumgardner, 22, missing since May 4th, 1937, from Delaware, Ohio. It is the way the grass brightened each spring because you held your heart open to the turn of each blade, to the cherry red burst of a cardinal flitting through the trees east of the old quarry. You painted your room in Nile green and olive because you loved how each spring green looked. Loved how you felt so small under all that wonder. You alone, each day in chapel, witnessed the light catching on every shade of white, a symphony that captured every color of the universe. And you knew if you could hold still long enough, you'd collapse into that beauty if someone wasn't there to whisper, "Hold on."
For more information about our show or to check out other shows on the network, please visit evergreenpodcast.com. Bye, Vanessa.
Bye, Amy.